Welcome everybody to the After Dark Show. I'm Don Rogers. Tonight's one of those fun episodes that I like to do every now and then. You guys have seen me do an episode with one of my guests, BG Cast. We did Decoding Donnie Dark, Rick and Morty. I just kind of spoiled there. We did Decoding Rick and Morty, and then I did another episode with Frank Castle where we were decoding Deadpool. Check out the Christmas sweater. Hey, Merry Christmas, everybody. And tonight we're going to do one of my absolute favorite movies in Decoding Donnie Darko. But before we get to that, I do have some co-hosts on this one. And of course, to this side of me is my beautiful and wonderful interdimensional exit buddy, Kyla Spinja Rogers, who is one of the best people to watch this movie with because we have a habit of pausing movies and going over them to begin with. And this is one of those movies where you have to have somebody of a like mindset where you can sit there and go, "Do you see that? Do you think this means this?" And we're going to get into a lot of that tonight. But first up, my first panelist his name is Phil Warder. He is a fellow Canadian. He is a drum meditation leader, a shamanic practitioner. That was easy for me to say. And the host of Unexplained Inc., Phil Warder. Phil, thank you for coming. And sorry, I tripped over your intro.
That's okay, Don. Thank you for having me. This is gonna be epic. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I think I'm a little overstimulated already. It might be all the bright colors or something, or it's just this movie.
Well, like I told you in a DM, I prepared so many notes for this. I don't think we're going to be able to get to them all tonight, so there might be leftovers on my end. So.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. Like, this is such a deep movie, and it's one of those movies when you first watch it, when we would have first watched it, it was like, okay, yeah, cool dude with an imaginary friend, right? And that's all you really caught. But we're drawn to these things, and this was the conversation we were having before, which brings me to our other panelist. Steven Stathis is the resident heretic here at FKN. He is the host of BG Cast, which airs on Wednesday nights, and he's also the best friend I have that I've never met in real life yet. So, Steven, thank you for joining us. I'm hitting all the wrong buttons tonight.
No worries, man. No worries. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. This movie's been near and dear to my heart for many years, and we were just talking about before the show started on how we've all been kind of drawn to this kind of material, this metaphysical, esoteric material, whether it be through movies, comics, music, even before our remembering actually ever occurred. And we were talking about how this was our higher self, like planting these subconscious seeds within us before we even knew that they were subconscious seeds. And it's interesting how we can take a look back at this now. Like I was telling you guys earlier, one of my old favorite bands I used to listen to, and how metaphysical their lyrics were. And I was listening to this band for years, even before I had my spiritual remembering. So yes, I'm looking forward to dive into this. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. And like I said, she sits through this movie probably about 3 times a month.
At least.
At least. And
you're making it sound like it's a task.
And she's actually helped me break down a lot of it because there's some deep connection. And I'm just going to read the intro here because this movie actually means something to me in a different way. And we're going to discuss the metaphysical and occult significance and symbolisms throughout the film. I will also be explaining why this movie about a highly intelligent, misdiagnosed savant sleepwalker with an imaginary friend named Frank and a tendency to challenge authority, whose name just happens to be Donnie, often felt like a strange mirror of my own reality, because everything I just said is actually fairly relevant to my own life, right up to the sleepwalking, which I'm going to get into. But I'd really like to hear your first viewing of this movie until your most recent, how it shifted. And I guess, Phil, we'll start with you because I know you went through this and it hit you in a completely different way.
Sure. I think where I'd like to start briefly is to take us back to the first time I ever watched this film. So I'm 43 now. I first watched this film a couple of months before I turned 20. I was at my former college roommate's house. We were having like a summer road trip. We got to some of this like we did back in the day. And there was like several of us in his brother's room at his childhood home in Scarborough, Ontario. And he was like a savant at like the cutting edge films. And he's like, hey, we're going to watch this movie. And we're like, okay, what's it called? Donnie Darko. So I'm on like a top bunk. Lights are down. There's all these like neon stars on the ceiling. And then we watch this movie. And number one, I had no idea what kind of star power was in the film. And then as we further got into it, I'm like, this is something really special. And I was completely blown away. And then before I turned 20, I got it on DVD and obsessively watched it over and over and started watching and picking up on all these nuances. Fast forward to 2025. This was back in 2002. So 2 decades later and a whole wild awakening, and whatnot ever since. I rewatched this film very recently for the first time in a long time, and there's even more to unpack. And I'm just going to leave it there for now before we really get into the weeds.
Yeah. Stephen, I'd love to hear how that's changed from your first viewing till now, because I know for me, I can do it quick and dirty and easy. It was like, oh yeah, cool movie about a guy named Donnie that's kind of crazy and has an imaginary friend. And then I watched it again within the last couple of years and went, oh.
Well, I've always been into it, man. I mean, I've said before in my shows, you could even ask my mom. Back when I was like 5 years old, I was watching stuff on extraterrestrials, the paranormal, the supernatural, and things like this. So this is, even though I wasn't exactly in my spiritual remembering at that time, I've always been on this side of the fence. This stuff has always intrigued me. And actually, the first time I saw it is actually not too long after Phil first saw it in 2004 when I was in high school. I was 16 years old. And I remember looking at this movie and just watching this and just all the different concepts behind it, from the primary universe, tangent universe, things like that. And how it blew my mind. And it definitely sparked my curiosity to what is really going on with this existence, because we know they put a lot of the truth in a lot of these films. Or is this something retrocausal? That's something also to talk about as well. And so I remember just being completely blown away by it the first time I watched it, and just all of the different what I would come to know as metaphysical concepts that were in it. And the most recent I've actually watched the movie, it's not too recent, but it was about like 5 years ago. And I remember watching it then because, yes, I was still in my spiritual evolution back then. I remember watching it and going like, man, this is really showing us, what could be a broader scope of this reality that we're experiencing. And especially the fact that how Donnie had like 4D powers of sorts, he was able to do telekinesis and things like that. That just even opens up a bigger, broad spectrum of questions of what is human consciousness? What is the human consciousness capable of? And I really can't even wait to talk about Frank tonight too. So this is going to be cool.
Yeah. And like Phil mentioned, like the cast and the cinematography in this movie and the timing, like I'm going to play a clip. And before I get in trouble for this on YouTube, this is a fan review. I do not own this material. I am not out to make money off of it. This is strictly a fan review of a film. But like there's certain cinematography moments in this film that are just absolutely perfectly timed. But before I get into that, I literally just learned like about a month ago, she was the one who told me that Donnie and the sister are actually brother and sister in real life. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. And she's like, no, really, they're brother and sister. I'm like, oh, that just changes the whole thing. So I had to watch it again and again. Right? But no, the cast in this, it's one of those cult classics that got buried and has like, it's just star-studded. And it's like, how did this fly under the radar of so many people with those names? So
it's like Southland Tales, though. The same dude.
Yeah, Southland Tales is another one of those. Same director and one of those movies. Yeah. But this is one of those movies in the film that absolutely. I just lost it. 1 second.
Always true. Don't have to tell
So there's actually two reasons I posted that. And spoiler for the movie, right when it says two worlds collided, that's when he passes a key character in the movie for the first time, and you don't realize that the worlds collide. And that is such great storytelling. And why this is so relevant to me, I actually showed the distance to Kyla the other day. When I was 8 years old, I was a sleepwalker. I walked out of my house and 2 miles down to the arena in the middle of an Ontario winter and was found in my pajamas by my sister's best friend's dad, who just luckily was coming home from shift work at PPG.
Interesting.
No idea. I remember I need to go outside, and I went outside and walked 2 miles down the road in the middle of winter and was found in a snowbank. So the whole thing about sleepwalking, and that is actually developed into, I've actually talked to you about this, Stephen. I now say my body has an autopilot because I can sleepwalk and it is completely cognitive, right? I have zero memory of it, but she can talk to me. She can ask me to do things. She can tell me stuff. I can reply to her completely unconscious. So these interactions in the astral with a sleepwalker really kind of hit a spot for me. And that's one of the things right off the bat, it's like, oh, sleepwalker named Donnie. Okay. Yeah, I see where this is going. Right. But I do want to jump to a picture as well. Sorry. This was something that she brought to my attention, and it's early on in the movie as well. The mascot of the school is a humanoid dog chained down, right? And since this is such a theoretical movie, I immediately okay, what is the meaning of that? And in Jungian philosophy, the image can be interpreted through a Jungian lens as shadow or representative parts of the psyche, the dog's wildness, that society or the ego attempts to keep chained and out of sight. Acknowledging and integrating this part is necessary for wholeness. And then on the other side of that was suffering and sympathy. Philosophers, and I'm going to screw up his last name, Arthur Schopenhauer.
Yeah.
Schopenhauer viewed a chained dog as an emblem of living beings driven by the same indifferent will and experiencing universal suffering. The image invokes deep sympathy. Powerful creature denied its natural freedom. That one hit me too, especially being that it's a school mascot. Right? It's literally like the educational system is here to chain you. You're a dog.
Mongrel.
They literally call the children mongrels in the movie, and it's like, wow. Like there's some deep crap.
I want to add another layer to that, actually, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one part of the movie I couldn't quite figure out, was the symbolism of that school mascot. And now it ties into something I was probably going to bring up later, but I think I should bring it up now. Another thing on repeated viewings of this film I had trouble figuring out was, what was that Charita character all about? Like, she's just kind of in the background. She's always upset. She kind of has weight in the story, but not really. This time around, this viewing around, though, I got it. And Dawn, it's going to tie in with what you just said. And I think the whole dam is going to burst from here. So the entire movie, while Donnie is flourishing in his timeline that the movie revolves around, Charita is suffering the whole time. And you have this whole yin and yang thing where one person is suffering and another person is thriving. And even when Donnie's trying to reassure her things are going to be okay, she just loses it on him and gets so upset. And throughout most of the scenes at the school with her, she is sitting near or like in front of this dog that is chained down, which leads to suffering, which I find really interesting. And I have to jump ahead here a bit, but at the ending scene, which I know we're going to get into later on, one thing I want to bring up is that when they're panning through everyone, you know, either waking up or in their bed, and a lot of people are upset and all that, she's the only one who's smiling because she knows that there's going to be a big shift, and now her suffering's going to be over because Donnie's going to be taken out of the picture. So I wanted to bring that up while we were in that wheelhouse.
I also wanted to add something too for to read it too, because what it was saying the symbolism is, you know, the repressed parts of the psyche, the repressed parts of the ego. You know, one of the biggest things that we see in this society, what are the repressed parts of the psyche? What is the collective suppression on that? Well, we see how the ego and the logical mind is often put on the forefront, put on the pedestal, or so they claim. And how the spiritual, or, you know, we'll even go with rational, irrational, when we're talking about this, how the spiritual, on how the freest aspects, the ones that are beneficial to overall human consciousness, are put on a back burner, or they're discounted, or they're frowned upon, you know. And Graham Hancock, I mean, even though I don't listen to him, he's talked about this before, this war on consciousness that is supposedly going on in our society at this point in time. That's what I think Sharita, at least in my eyes, I agree with what you were saying, Phil, too, but I'll even add another layer to that, is that she was the representation of that collective repression of those aspects of ourselves that are chained up through, I guess you could say, the collective schema that we currently have. You know, I mean, we look at the humanity for the most part now. Yes, people are waking up, don't get me wrong, but we still have a very, it's very frowned upon, you know, the wavelength that we're on. We're looked at as these kooky tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists who don't know what they're talking about. But for those of us who have been on the spiritual evolution for such a long time, you know, we know the weight of what we're looking at. And so that's why I feel like she was always miserable, is because if you look at collective humanity right now, deep within themselves, they're miserable because of these repressed parts of themselves. So I just wanted to add on to what Phil was saying with that.
Yeah, and it actually makes sense because I'm like kind of watching the movie in my head right now. The scene where Sharita is eavesdropping on Donnie and the teacher while they're explaining time travel is fundamentally the moment where she gets it, right? She knows what Donnie's up to, and that's she actually kind of cracks a smile even there, like, and like she's listening because she understands what's about to go on too, because Donnie's trying to use these fourth density powers that he's all of a sudden had.
One of the kind of nuances I noticed again upon viewing this time is that there's various key points in the film where Donnie either lets out a laugh or a smirk, and it's so quick that if you don't notice it, you might miss it. And watching this time around, my interpretation was a bit of a Groundhog Day type of vibe on this, where there's certain points of this story where he's kind of laughing or smirking because he remembers. In that moment, he remembers that he's likely done this before and he knows what's coming. And I'll get into that a little bit deeper later on. And I think it happens, Don, in the opening scene before he starts riding his bike. Like when he wakes up from his sleepwalking, he just lets out a smirk because just to say, here we go again. Let's see where I go this time.
And as a sleepwalker, you get that. Like, I've woken up in some weird places. Quick and easy one for you. My aunt and her son lived on 2 different floors of an apartment building in 28th Street on Owen Sound. In Owen Sound, I fell asleep at my aunt's house and woke up at my cousin's house. I managed to walk into from one apartment to another. So you really don't know where you're going to wake up sometimes too. I don't know if it's a weird narcolepsy thing, but you really do start to get a laugh out of it. Like, oh yeah, here we go. Like,
Agreed.
And one of the key things about this film, and it was something I looked up online, is what I used to call the best metaphysical book that was never written. And that's The Philosophy of Time Travel by Roberta Sparrow. And then I did some digging and I actually found, and like I was telling you guys before, I don't know if this was the actual like script from the movie or just what somebody gleaned from the work that was presented in the movie, but I'm actually going to start going through those. I'm going to get her to read them because she's a better reader than me. and we'll go through like chapter by chapter. And I'm sure we're going to get to the parts that you guys want to get to, because this kind of covers everything that goes on. So I'm just going to, that one.
So, chapter 1, the tangent universe. The primary universe is fraught with great peril. War, plague, famine, and natural disaster are common. Death comes to us all. The fourth dimension of time is a stable construct, though it is not impenetrable. Incidents when the fabric of the fourth dimension becomes corrupted are incredibly rare. If a tangent universe occurs, it will be highly unstable, sustaining itself for no longer than several weeks. Eventually, it will collapse upon itself, forming a black hole within the primary universe capable of destroying all existence.
I know you and me have had conversations about tangent realities, Steve. That one kind of blew my mind with the whole, it can only last a week or a month. But it was like, I don't know if we're in a loop in a tangent reality, because a lot of this stuff does seem scripted and like it shouldn't be happening. So like, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the tangent stuff that she just read.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, as far as it lasting like only several weeks, I mean, that's definitely theoretical in my eyes. I mean, it's very possible we could be experiencing an intermingling of a tangent reality and a primary reality at this point in time as well. I mean, there's so many theories that something could have potentially happened to Earth and we could be in a different reality at this point in time, or a different type of timeline, a different frequency of this planet. But the one thing that I really find interesting about the fourth dimensional constructs like this is we're starting to find out now. There's more, and I think I was even talking with Phil about this on our episode. We're starting to find out that time itself has 3 dimensions at this point in time. So it's very well we could have something called parallel time, as far as past, present, and future all running parallel with each other, as opposed to running as a line when we're looking back at the past and we're looking forward at the future. And I mean, you look at Frank too in this aspect. I mean, this is a prime example of Frank in the movie, the bunny character. He's coming back to warn Donnie, from this tangent universe, the unstable universe that was actually formed due to the airplane motor incident and things like that. So this is a prime example of retro causality, and we've talked about retro causality a lot, on all of our shows, on how these future events can impact the past and the past, and how present events can impact the past as well, and things like that. So I at this point in time, the one thing I want to say is it's very possible we could have a lot of different tangent universes, and what we see kind of coming together, what could be like, what people talk about a Mandela effect, having all of these different, aspects of reality that weren't here before start to show up in our, perceived focal point of reality. It's very possible you could have something like that going on, the collapsing of these tangent timelines that are coming forth into play to kind of resolve themselves on a somewhat of a greater timeline potentially before there could be more branching off. So that's just my take on it.
I love it. Phil, what do you got?
Yeah, I like that take a lot too. What I'm going to focus on right now, and obviously I'm in major agreement with what Stephen has said here, but I think the embodiment of retrocausality in this film, one of the many, but the main one might be the character of Gretchen Ross.
Exactly.
And here's why: because her intro, when she first comes into the classroom and Drew Barrymore as the teacher goes, "You look like you belong here." Like it's as if she's kind of privy to what's going on and what's up. And then there's the scene where Donnie's trying to court Gretchen, and like he's doing such a bad job of it, but I think deep down he knows he's going to succeed. So it's like he kind of like doesn't care. And then she asks him in that scene, "Are you some kind of superhero or something?" And his response, what makes you think I'm not? So it's like there's a major foreshadowing and interplay that makes you think on an unconscious level. They know where this is going, so to speak. And perhaps the biggest thing regarding the Gretchen character is that she has this scene where they're doing the class presentation, and she has like these like VR goggles that you would put on an infant, and you would want to replace dark memories with positive ones. And if you think about that, don't we want to do that with retrocausality? We want to heal the past from another perspective and another point in time. And arguably, Gretchen's character maybe suffers more in this timeline than anyone else in the movie. And yet she's the one calling out, well, what if an infant at that developmental age only has pleasant memories? And then the teacher, of course, Noah Wiley, is like, well, in order to develop, you need both the light and the dark. Darkness is important for an infant's development. So I find it interesting that she's the character in this timeline who probably suffers the most, and yet she's trying to find ways to wipe out these dark memories, and she's basically being told, well, no, it can't be done. You know what I mean? So if that's not retrocausality, I don't know what is, and an example of past, present, and future all going at the same time.
And on that note, the cinematography on this, again, I have to give credit to it, because the scene that you're talking about actually takes place in front of Patrick Swayze's character's house in the movie. And Donnie goes into about how he burned down a house, right?
Yeah.
And later on, same idea, he gets the card that he tells the teacher to shove up her ass, and then finds Swayze's wallet in front of his house, right? So there's the whole, go ahead.
Another detail I'd like to add about that is that, and this is a thing, if you don't catch it quickly, you might miss it. When Donnie is reading that card at Jim Cunningham's ceremony, the character on the card is named Frank. And the card itself is about Frank finds a wallet with hundreds of dollars in it. Should he return it or should he keep it? And then, Donnie later finds Jim Cunningham's wallet right in front of his house. And that's a whole synchronistic foreshadowing right there. So it's pretty wild.
Oh, yeah, they did great. Oh, and back to the Frank thing, when the dad is talking about their high school friend who died on the way to prom, his name was Frankie Fiedler, right? So the use of the name Frank in this is so, like, it's just everywhere. And then Frank himself says, it was my father and his father before him. And it's like, oh, so the name is historical. And Kyla just handed me something. I do actually have something I refer to as my brain monkey. He's my imaginary friend, and we could call him my shadow. He helps me think of things. And he rides a giant squirrel, and his name is Frank. So if you want to talk about how weird this is, I have had my imaginary friend named Frank long after I watched and forgot about this movie. Right? And then I watched it again and went, oh, that's the same too. So just one of those weird parallels. And there's Lee in the chat saying, let's be frank. Thanks, Lee. I got to jump back to my immediate. You have something to say?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you had something. Just 1 second. So go there.
Chapter 2, Water and Metal. Water and metal are the key elements of time travel. Water is the barrier element for the construction of time portals used as gateways between universes as the tangent vortex. Metal is the transitional element for the construction of artifact vessels.
Just let me... Oh, no. We'll stop there. The one thing I wanted to say about that, when I got into my spiritual awakening, and I think I've told you about this, Stephen, I was practicing with breathing and, trying to do DMT stuff and breath work. And the only time I actually had a deliberate OBE, I was doing breath work while meditating in the tub with warm water. Mm-hmm. And that was the only time I was actually physically able to intentionally get out of my human form. Scary as hell, but it does actually, there is some relevance to the whole water aspect of time travel and the reality we're in.
Absolutely, man. Water is a medium between the dimensions. It is. And in my own experiences, I've had that happen. I mean, everybody has heard me. I mean, not everybody, but I know you've heard it, Don. I talk about my very absolutely legendary DMT experience I had back in June of 2022, when I was greeted by these 7 seraphim Elohim type beings, and I felt this water dripping all over me. And I remember like saying to myself, like, you know, where's this water coming from? Like, what's happening? And then I heard the emotional telepathy in my chest. You know, the water is a medium between the dimensions. This is how we could come to you, and this is how we could talk to you. You even look at it from a standpoint of the Platonic solids. You look at the icosahedron and you look at the dodecahedron. You look at the water and the ether, and the water and the ether are actually intertwined. The water is almost like a physical format of the ether. So when we talk about water and these medians between these dimensions or these densities, whatever you want to call it, yes, very much so. And I believe the water is potentially a conduit for the ether to operate and to activate within the means that we can find a way to tangibly describe it. Because if you're looking at it like that, and they are very similar, you know, the water basically being a physical version almost like the ether, we can imprint water, we can imprint frequency on water, we can imprint intention on water, we can imprint intention into our existence, we can imprint it very much so. So that's what I'm saying, man. I completely agree with that. The water is a very spiritual thing. And water even just came up for me today in something too. So this is very synchronistic as well. So no, I completely agree with that, man. When it comes to water, I mean, even look at the movie Constantine. I know we're talking about Donnie Darko, but I just want to pull it out of Constantine because you were talking about in the bathtub. But in the movie Constantine, he would use the water. He would get in the water to astral travel to the dark levels of the astral and things like this. So this is something that we've seen quite a bit, you know, not just in movies, but in a lot of spiritual literature. Jason. Yeah. And Jason, but no, that I'll end it on that.
Yeah, and what I'd like to add to that, and yeah, good shout out to Constantine. That's a movie I have to give another watch. It's been a while, but yeah, that's
we should definitely do a decode on that. That was really interesting.
It's an underrated film in my estimation, and it's been like many years since I've watched it. So another thing with the water is obviously when Donnie starts seeing the spears coming out of people's chests, they're like made of water. You know what I mean? They're very watery. And I came to this conclusion literally, okay, keep that there for a sec. I want to bring something up because this was leading what I was getting into here. Where's that spear leading to? It leads him to the refrigerator, an appliance that runs on water and metal. Tell me that's an accident, right? Like,
and it is just wild because exactly what you were talking about, Stephen, is basically what happens to Donnie, and he starts to be able to visualize that energy. And when he's explaining it to his psychiatrist later on, he calls them workers, right? And that's literally, in my perception of the movie, that's like your guide, your higher self. Like you were saying, it comes out of, I just so happen to have, it comes out of the solar plexus.
Yeah.
And you were drawn energetically in the correct direction that you're supposed to be. And I do believe because our ether is made of water, that's why we can flow through energetically and follow the projection of self.
I have a quick question here. I don't want to get too far off topic, but have any of you just gone in a certain direction and it led you to exactly where you wanted to be without any type of planning or realization, but you knew you had to go there and then it happened? I'm not going to get into this tonight, but I've had some crazy experiences like that, and it reminds me of being led around by a spear like that. So, like, I think there's a lot more truth to that than I think we probably even realize.
Oh, I would completely agree. And yes, I've had quite a few of those instances, even recently. So yes, I've had quite a few of those.
Like across the country.
So, but no, yeah. Continue. Let's move on. No, I definitely want to touch on that, and we do need to do a Decoding Constantine show. I think we need to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have something you wanted to share?
No, just that's been my experience lately. Like I don't know what's happened, but it just, there's things that are coming up that I absolutely am being guided. You know, like I'll quickly, like, my farmers market experience, like that. I just went, you know, like the intention was to start getting my name out there, and you know, like start building the foundation to sell my products. But what's come out of it is that I was doing demos, and you know, like somebody suggested that I start a recipe group, and it just seems like I'm being called right now to share my knowledge and teach, and things just keep presenting themselves. Like you know, I got hooked up with a lady from the public library over in Crossfield there, doing demos, and it's like, I see where this is going, and it's what I want, but it just feels like I'm being pulled. It's getting really cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this reality, when you realize you can manifest and help control it, it gets really fun.
Oh, absolutely, man.
So chapter 4, the artifact and the living. When a tangent universe occurs, those living nearest to the vortex will find themselves at the epicenter of a dangerous new world. Artifacts provide the first sign that a tangent universe has occurred. Artifacts returned to the primary universe are often linked to religious iconography, as their appearance on Earth seems to defy logical explanation. Divine intervention is deemed the only logical conclusion for appearance of the artifact. Does that bring us back to Sharita?
That does get back to Sharita.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, the part where, like, when they were doing their variety show, she did a dance, Autumn Angel. That brings up some more questions here.
Yeah. And like it really is the airplane engine is the catalyst artifact, but Donnie knows how to bring it back into it. I love that part of this. And the examples that it had given in the book, I didn't include them. There's a story about a tribal warrior being found on the edge of a cliff with a spear in his chest, but no enemy in sight. Right? This artifact appeared and killed the warrior, and nobody knows where it came from. So things like this, and this is actual from history. Like, and there's a sword, like the knight who was killed by a sword that he never drew. Like there's a lot of weird instances of how people just have interactions with objects that have no business in that reality.
Have any of you guys ever seen those videos? Because there's a lot of instances of this that has actually been recorded. Those cars that seemingly appear out of nowhere and get into a car accident with somebody and things along those, because that's what first came to mind when you were talking about the spear, you know, no enemy in sight, hitting them in the chest. But it's very possible that we have these different timelines, especially, you know, that could intermingle with each other. And there was even people talking about on one of my shows I did with Nick on how there's a I'm trying to think of the words. There's a molecular universe or a physical universe, and there's also a physical Earth, and there's also I forgot exactly what he was calling it, but it's like almost like an energetic form of Earth. And that was his explanation for where a lot of these Tartarian architectures actually like originated from, and actually came from this energetic aspect of Earth. But you know, since we were talking about parallel time earlier, I mean, of course, you know, parallel time is going to have many different timelines within that. You know, you're going to have many different timelines within the present, many different timelines within the past, many different timelines within the future. And ultimately what we can see what I would call a type of frequency crossover that could occur. You can have these different objects manifest. And also too, as we go into higher timelines, as we timeline jump and go into these higher timelines, we can have more of this begin to occur. And I mean, I've even brought this up with something that came up I'm not trying to go off track with the movie, but the stone sarcophagus that was found in Siberia, Russia, that was rumored to be over 800 million years old. That's what a lot of the data based on where it was found underground. I myself, you know me, guys, I've said I've had a butt cheek in the Atlantis rabbit hole and the human history rabbit hole for quite some time. And this is the first time I had ever seen this. This came up just, on my feed, like about I want to say like 3-4 months ago. And so what we could potentially have too is more information as we go higher in timeline start to come through. And this information can be symbolic. It can be literal, like an artifact or something along those lines too. And that's just my take on it.
You want to hear something interesting in regards to artifacts? I was thinking of when to bring this up, and this is the perfect time. So I know I've talked to all of you about it, and those who have listened on Explained Incorporated have heard some of my own stories, but I started to have this conscious kind of relationship with spirit animals around 2018. Not too long before I discovered shamanism, but I was into yoga and meditation and all that. Well, so I'm watching this film for the first time in a long time, and one of the early shots near the end of the film where the sky cracks open, I'm not, like, I swear on my life here. So one of my OG spirit animals is the mourning dove. One of the shots they have of like the sky cracking open, there's a telephone wire, and I swear on my life, a mourning dove walks into the shot on the wire. And I've been watching this movie how many years, and I had never noticed it before, and I was just like, okay, that is just weird. That almost felt like this Mandela effect, like artifact that was there just for me, but it's been there the whole time, So I mean, figure that one out.
Oh, now I got to go watch and look for the mourning dove.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff like that in movies and television and stuff. And I'm going to squirrel here for a half a second. Both William and I, my son, were born on March 4th, right? So we call ourselves Fourthers and we joke around. And we came up with a saying, fourth life for life, right? The show Letterkenny, the two hockey players in the original season knuckle bump to each other, and I put the closed captions on because I was like, no, I'm losing my fucking mind. There's no way they just said that. They literally knuckle bump and say fourth life for life. And I'm like, we made that up.
Yeah.
How the hell did it end up in a show? Right? So like I do think that stuff does actually happen. Like we've talked about certain movies that just have so much relevance to our lives. It's like that can't be coincidence.
It's just been it just feels a little personal, like first character.
Yeah. And I want to hit on what Steven was saying about frequency crossovers before we get back to it. The one day I was setting up for a show and William was in the kitchen doing dishes, and he comes around the corner and he looks at me and goes, "Oh, that wasn't you." I'm like, "No, that was your mom." He's like, "Mom's in the bathroom. That was you." I'm like, "What?" I saw the person out of my peripheral vision. I saw them walk away from where I was sitting on the couch, which is like right across from me. And William saw them walk behind him and went, because he heard me still clicking away on the keyboard. And he's like, "Oh, so that wasn't you." And I was like, "No, that was your mom." And he's like, "No, mom's in the bathroom." So there was another frequency version of me, or the two timelines were very, very close, or there was a bleed through or something. But we've actually experienced where there's been two versions of me where the other one was almost corporeal.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had instances of that myself. People being gone, but seeing them there is one of the biggest things I've experienced in my own personal experience. Is I've seen people, like, for instance, like let's say if I'm living with somebody and they're gone, right, or they went out of town or something along those lines. I've had so many instances where I've seen that person in the home with me at that point in time, and I would have to take like a double take, and I would have to like look and be like, "Whoa, that was strange." It's almost like it could be energetic transference from a different timeline. It could be residual energy itself too. But no, I've definitely experienced that.
just real quick, it's happened a couple of times, I think. I've seen people I know from the physical, like in the dream world, and they've recognized me, or we recognized each other. I remember this one friend of mine, I don't know what it was. It was like we were in nature somewhere, and a lot of people were going up and down this stone staircase. She was going up and I was going down, and we like turned and locked eyes at each other and was like, oh, and then we just kept going, like weirdest stuff. But anyway, it all ties into all the weirdness in this film. So
yeah, and we'll get back to one more second. Anybody who watches the show knows I have a friend from work who is in this same kind of mindset, loves this kind of stuff. His name's Lonnie. And the second day he worked with me, same kind of scenario as what you're talking about, Phil. We walked past each other in the shop, and I just looked at him and went, I know you. And he's like, I know you too. And we ran down it for about 5 minutes. You've been here? Nope. You've been here? Nope. You've been here? Nope. Okay, then we know each other from somewhere else. And that was pretty much how we introduced ourselves to each other.
Yeah, actually, this is going to tie into another point I wanted to bring up, but I've lost count of the amount of times that has happened to me in the last 5 or 6 years, so I know exactly what you're talking about. One thing I find fascinating about the Donnie Darko character is how he just blazingly challenges authority and social norms. And I think one of the reasons he does it is because he has this inner knowing of what the outcomes are going to be and that they really can't do shit to him. So he's going to do it. And he just doesn't see the purpose of mindless conformity. And he knows that in this reality, he can pretty much get what he wants without conforming. And that's kind of like his own inside joke based on his body language and the way he interacts with certain people.
Agreed.
Totally agree. And I love that at one point, and I actually have a clip for this. And again, this is a review show. It's we're not owning anything here. But his dad gives him probably the best goddamn fatherly advice I've ever heard from anybody that is even remotely neurologically divergent. And it goes like this.
Whatever happens to you, be honest. Tell the truth. Even if they do look at you funny, they will. But what you got to understand, son, is that almost all of those people are full of shit. They're all part of this great big conspiracy. Bullshit. And they're scared of people like you. Because those bullshitters know that you're smarter than all of them. You know what you say to people like that? Fuck you.
Best parenting advice. I've actually said that to Will. He's actually over here laughing now because that's like his favorite scene. But that is by far the best advice in the movie. And Donnie really doesn't give a fuck because he realizes there's nothing any of these people can do to him because he's smarter than all of them.
Yeah. Sorry, Steven, just give me 1 sec here. Another thing is, and we can get into this after too, is that another major theme explored in this film touches on mental illness. Is it what we know it as and think it as, or is it a portal or a wormhole to things outside of ourselves or an alternate dimension? And we can get into that. But Steven, yeah, you can say your piece on that.
We can dive into that too if you want, man, because that's something what I did want to say too, when he was talking about the conspiracy and how they're all in on it and they all know that you're smarter than them. I mean, take a look at every one of us at this point in time, and that's just something I'm going to say because it kind of even brought into a little bit of like manufactured reality vibes. Like maybe this could be in some way, this could be what we call a Donnie Darko creepypasta, or like a Donnie Darko like or something like this. What if this was all a manufactured experience for Donnie? From his higher self of some kind or of something along those lines. But even diving into what you were saying about mental illness, absolutely, that's where I kind of even wanted to bring up Frank again, because I'm living Frank because you made me him in the thumbnail, so I have to embody Frank tonight in some way. But based on even what you were saying, Phil, when we take a look at who Frank is two things. Okay, well, technically three if you want to go there, but he is a figment of Donnie's imagination, although we know it was his sister's boyfriend, whom he ran over when he was in the bunny suit and things like that. And he is a figment of Donnie's imagination, but he is also an interdimensional entity at the same time, which kind of ties into what you were saying about mental illness. Is this just accessing a broader spectrum of consciousness? Is this just accessing a broader bandwidth of reality? And that's one thing I feel about a lot of schizophrenics, people who have autism, that they are accessing this greater bandwidth of reality that they might not quite understand. And in the terms of this consensual reality, medical science and all of that does not quite yet understand. And that even brings into question. So Frank is both a figment of Donnie's imagination and an interdimensional entity. What does that say about consciousness itself? What does that say about what consciousness is, what it is capable of? What are we experiencing when we go into these altered states? Is it merely just some kind of hallucination that we are temporarily experiencing, or are we getting a broader glimpse into the bigger bandwidth of existence? So it really, I love that part, that it's almost like a little bit of a paradox in ways, because if Frank is both a figment of Donnie's imagination and he is his own entity in that aspect, what does that say? Does it say that the imagination is a catalyst for this greater bandwidth? Is this the message that we're receiving in this? I want to hear Phil's thoughts on this, because I know he's probably going to agree.
Yeah, I agree with that a whole lot. And another thing, like there's many layers to add to this as well. And I think now's a good time to get into them. So the story takes place going right into Halloween, where the veil is thin between dimensions, right? No accident. The Frank character, because we find out that this suit is a Halloween costume, could have been any costume under the sun, but yet we get the old rabbit hole, the rabbit suit. You know what I mean? Like, no accident. And this is going to take me to, and I mentioned this in my one social media post, this isn't just my favorite scene in the whole movie. This is like one of my favorite scenes ever out of like any cinematic piece I have ever watched, because it is so beautiful and is so well put together. And to me, some of the most pivotal moments in film happen quietly. And this is one of those scenes. And of course, I'm talking about where Frank reveals himself and takes the bunny head off in the movie theater. And there's more layers to this to add to what Stephen was saying. So what movie are they watching? Evil Dead. And this is interesting because the story takes place 1988. I believe the first Evil Dead came out in 84, and then the sequel came out in like 87, 88. And the numbers 8 and 4, they have crazy synchronicity to me too, which I won't even get into right now. But so they're watching Evil Dead. And when the portal opens up on the movie screen, there's the shot of a clock, of course, just to show that, hey, this clock really doesn't mean anything. And even though they're watching the first film, the end of the second Evil Dead, going into the third one, oh, it's about time travel. Of course, and the interplay, the music, the interplay, the fact that Gretchen is fast asleep and she doesn't witness any of this, there's layers to that too. But when Donnie sees Frank in the theater, he just turns, gives him a smirk once again, because he was expecting him. And one of the great lines of the film as well, why are you wearing that stupid bunny suit? And Frank's reply, well, why are you wearing that stupid man suit? And then, when he's told to go burn down Jim Cunningham's residence, Donnie puts the skeleton hoodie on and does it up. And then all of a sudden, this circles back to when he meets Gretchen and she asks if he's a superhero. In that moment, Donnie steps into the role of vigilante superhero, and he's got his outfit on with the skeleton hoodie. So, like, there's just so much going on in that scene. And it all circles back to what Steven said about, okay, 1 minute, Frank's an imaginary friend, and the next he's an interdimensional traveler. But wait, he's both, or he can be both. So what does it say about everything? It just goes on and on and on.
Absolutely. And I think that just goes to the point that when Frank gets killed, this is my take on it, he actually reverts back to pure consciousness because he's not constrained by that human form anymore, right?
Mhm.
Which what you were saying, Stephen, makes absolute sense because now he can move sideways through time, back, forward, whatever he wants. He doesn't have a human form. So when he says about the silly man suit, he's talking to Donnie from the level of Frank's consciousness, right? And he's trying to appeal to Donnie's consciousness. Like, you're wearing a silly suit too. Like, you look just as dumb as I do, right? So it actually makes sense what you're saying about him being like an ethereal character that can traverse time and space. It makes sense because he's not constricted by the body. And that form would be familiar to Donnie, I guess.
Mhm.
That's my take, but
I know, I agree, man.
Mhm.
See where we go here. Oh, we did that one. We did that.
Mhm.
This one. Give it back.
Chapter 6, The Living Receiver. The living receiver is chosen to guide the artifact into position for its journey back to the primary universe. No one knows how or why a receiver will be chosen. The living receiver is often blessed with a fourth dimensional powers. These include increased strength, telekinesis, mind control, and the ability to conjure fire and water.
And that circles back to what you were saying about Donnie having the fourth dimensional powers. Like, he is the living receiver. And I think it gets interesting in the material that I found that it breaks down basically when there's a tangent universe or reality, everybody's role, because, Donnie's the receiver, some of them are the manipulated dead, some of the manipulated living. And it really shows, if you're in an alternate reality, how strange things can get because everybody plays a different role.
That line there about fire and water really got to me because Donnie gets to Gretchen because, he floods the school upon Frank's command. And then he burns down Jim Cunningham's mansion and they find all the dirt on him through the use of fire under Frank's command. And then that those are two bookends of the story right there. So that's pretty wild too.
Good catch, Phil. That was brilliant.
Wow.
Good catch. I didn't even. Wow.
The living receiver is often tormented by terrifying dreams, visions, and auditory hallucinations during his time within the tangent universe. These surrounding the living receiver, known as the manipulated, will fear him and try to destroy him.
How many of us in this community can not say that they've felt like somebody has been trying to destroy them? Like, that's why I think people like us do shift from reality to reality and timeline to timeline. And when we get somewhere where we make people uncomfortable, it pisses them off.
Well, absolutely agreed. I mean, in some ways, aren't we all somewhat of a living receiver? I mean, when we talk about, the responsibility of returning an artifact to its original timeline. All right, let's start, because that's essentially why Donnie is the living receiver in this. Is he's returning this artifact to its original universe. But really, you can even see artifact as something symbolic. Wouldn't an artifact be the true nature, our true remembering, our true knowledge of what we are and who we are? I mean, this even ties into, I'm not going too off base when I say this, but one of the things Terrence McKenna would always say about the DMT realm is your goal should be to bring something back from that experience. And is bringing something back a physical, tangible thing, or is bringing something back a remembrance? Or is it a remembrance, or is it a inner knowing of something from that experience? So that's why Donnie in a lot of ways relates to us. That was one of the biggest things that I always saw, even when I watched the movie again 5 years ago. And that was one of the things. Donnie relates to us. I mean, you look at Donnie's, rebelling against authority. We are on our spiritual evolution. We're cultivating these spiritual abilities within ourselves. It's almost like an example that's set forth, whether it's done in a retrocausal way, whether it was done by the writers themselves in this, maybe they knew something that they were trying to put forth. But that's just one thing I wanted to add about the living receiver is a very symbolic for what we are. And you could even look at that plane engine as being the remembrance, as being the spiritual remembrance that we need to integrate within ourselves. And that's ultimately going to collapse all of our timelines in within us into the sole highest outcome. I just wanted to throw that in there. Yeah.
That's tremendous. That's tremendous stuff for sure. I just want to show you something real quick. If you could see this, this is my journal. It's almost full. I've had it for a few years. This, I think, is my artifact, because when I do my own timeline jumping with the shamanic journeys, the breath work, the occasional psychedelics, the sound journeys, I feverishly jot down what I see in this thing from my memory, because eventually it will fade. And there is so much valuable information for me within these pages that it goes to show, I think, that stream of pen to paper from memory and consciousness is the artifact. And for Donnie, you're right. I think it has to do with the jet engine. And I think it has to do with the scattered memories he has with his body language in certain parts of the film, with certain people he meets and interacts with as well.
Mm-hmm. No, I absolutely love that. And not plugging anything because I get nothing out of this. If you need a new journal, you can actually order a journal that is an 88-page journal, and it is the hardcover. It's blank, but it's the hardcover of Roberto Sparrow's book.
Yo.
And you can write your own notes about your own tangent universe. So I'm not hawking anything for anybody. I'm just telling you that actually exists, because when I was trying to find this stuff, I stumbled across that.
Well, I might have to hit that up. Thanks for the share.
Yeah.
Chapter 7, The Manipulated Living. The manipulated living are often the close friends and neighbors of the living receiver. They are prone to irrational, bizarre, and often violent behavior. This is the unfortunate result of their task, which is to assist the living receiver in returning the artifact to the primary universe. The manipulating living will do anything to save themselves from oblivion.
That one's kind of deep, because and that kind of goes into the Agent Smith effect. And you often
That's exactly what I was going to say.
You have to wonder how many times we're affecting timelines, and that's why people get like they get with people like us. Stephen, take it away.
Well, no, because that's what it is. I mean, you see the manipulated living. I mean, look at that. That's a lot of the general population at this point in time, is it not? And of course, we've all experienced that, because I just was saying how Donnie relates to us. He's symbolic for us on our spiritual evolution, on our awakening path at this point in time. The manipulated living are those around us that see us start to break free from our own manipulated living, and they start to react as poorly when they see that happen. So that's why I just wanted to throw that in there. No, it's symbolic for the Smith effect indeed.
I think some good living examples of this are the characters of Jim Cunningham, and Kitty Farmer. And I observed something really interesting viewing this time around, is that they are both narcissists, arguably psychopaths, sociopaths for sure, but I think they're both completely unaware of the levels of psychopathy they operate under. Because Mrs. Farmer, she's the crazy, controlling, manipulative religious nut. And there's the one scene where she has a God is awesome t-shirt, and it just makes me laugh, because I'm like, you are so far removed from God, it's not even funny. But you think you're being of service and doing the right thing. But what's even darker about the Jim Cunningham character, other than the overt pedophilia that gets revealed, is that he seems to be aware of Kitty Farmer's narcissism, and he's weaponizing it against her, and she doesn't even know it. And she's so gaslit that after he gets arrested and busted for these crimes, she still wants to defend him. And Donnie being the foil to that and that manipulated living, I think that's such a great contrast, because not only are Patrick Swayze and Beth Grant's performances tremendous in that role, but I think they represent the institutional, I'll use the word narcissism, but like they represent the exact thing that Donnie is going against and trying to expose the hypocrisy of, which he ends up doing eventually. So it's when you said manipulated living, I thought of those characters right away.
Oh, absolutely. And like, she goes as far, and you mentioned it, but she actually goes as far to defend the pedophile over being with her own daughter at a performance that she spearheaded. And it was like, wow, it really is like that, though. Some people are that blind to it, and they do just eat it up. Like, no, you're absolutely dead on there, Phil.
Chapter 9, Insurance Trap. The manipulated dead will set an insurance trap. The living receiver must ensure the fate of all mankind.
Oh, there was more about that. So basically, I don't know where that went. Shit.
Oh, there it is.
No, that's the same one. I lost some of my notes, which is par for the course with me. But yeah, basically, the insurance trap is something that the manipulated living put forth in order to get the receiver to go towards his destiny as well. Basically, the good people in the story, right? The Sharitas, the Gretchens, that's the
teachers.
Yeah. Oh, the teachers are absolutely brilliant. Like, the first time we watched it recently, she didn't like the way Drew Barrymore's character approached Gretchen when she first comes in and kind of puts her on the spot about, sitting near the boy you like. And it's like, no, that's actually giving her the freedom of choice and like kind of making her like the center of attention. It's not to shit on her. And I think she already kind of knew and knows what Donnie is as well. Like that, the teacher, the Drew Barrymore character, is definitely onto Donnie.
I would completely agree on that, man. And the insurance that you were talking about too, it's almost symbolic for Donnie in a lot of ways, at least from what I can see, is showing the manipulated living what they are all truly capable of with his abilities. Just like we're showing everybody around us what they are also very capable of. And that would be almost like the insurance. That's symbolic for that. That's how I can actually kind of break it down into our experience.
No, I think that sums it up better than, because I lost my note on it. So I appreciate the recovery there, Steve.
No worries, man.
Good catch on my fumble. But yeah, this happens every time I have all my ducks in a row. One of them just kind of flocks off and I end up losing my place. So
Chapter 10, The Manipulated Dead. The manipulated dead are more powerful than the living receiver. If a person dies within the tangent dimension, they are able to contact the living receiver through the fourth dimensional construct.
So that explains Frank. Frank is the manipulated dead, and he can now travel through the fourth dimensional construct in order to help Donnie get to where he needs to go to change the timeline.
Well, it's exactly too. Well, it is too. It's like I was going to bring up too. I didn't mean to go ahead, Phil. Were you going to say something?
No, go ahead. I'll go after.
The insurance traps are also like I was going to say, because the manipulated dead, that was what enabled Frank to move through those densities. Insurance traps I want to throw in too. Didn't mean to go back. The flooding of the school and the burning of the house. Those were two of the insurance traps from the movie that I had jotted down. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I completely lost my place there, Steven, so I appreciate you grabbing
that.
Yeah,
no worries.
One question I wanted to bring up was, can we maybe consider Roberta Sparrow to be one of the manipulated dead? Because she's alive, but she isn't. She seems to be stuck in this trauma loop, and she's reliving basically the night of like Frank's death and all that, and can't seem to snap out of it. And does anyone have any theories on what she whispers to Donnie? Because that seems to kind of change his trajectory. And some of the characters ask Donnie about it, and he deliberately does not answer. So I'm almost wondering if it's like Roberta Sparrow's like a version of The Walking Dead and is manipulating the living in a certain way. I don't know. It's kind of a crazy one to look into.
I dig it, and I honestly think we were talking about mental illness before. I think Roberta Sparrow has a type of dementia, and I've often thought that people with dementia, it's kind of a misnomer or it's right in your face. I believe that they can see into other dimensions. They just don't know how to filter it back down to this reality and look like a sane person, right? Because a lot of us in this community can see through certain layers of certain shit too. And I actually know what she says. Every living thing dies alone. And I strongly disagree with that because I died once and she came with me.
That's
So that is actually what she says. That's what she whispers to him, is every living thing dies alone.
You think about the effect that has on Donnie, though, because if you really look at from a bird's eye view what he's doing, he's manipulating this entire timeline and cheating death because I think he's terrified of dying alone. And in this timeline, he gets with Gretchen, and then maybe subconsciously he's thinking, well, I got the girl. I don't have to die alone now, but all these people have to suffer because of it, you know? So that's pretty interesting.
No, that's big too, because yeah, he does actually find some companionship in her. Where am I here? This one? No, we did that one. This one. Yeah, that was the thing that got screwed up.
The fourth dimensional construct is made of water. The manipulated dead will manipulate the living receiver using the fourth dimensional construct. See Appendix A and B.
And we already did, because that's just those.
Mm-hmm.
The manipulated dead will. Oh, we already did that.
Yeah, that's where I got screwed up.
Yeah, we did.
That's what went missing.
We haven't done that one yet. Yeah.
That's what went missing.
If the insurance trap is successful, the living receiver is left with no choice but to use his fourth dimensional power to send the artifact back in time into the primary universe before the black hole collapses upon itself.
Which is what we were talking about. Like, he finds a way to like get the plane engine to fall on him, and it sets everything right. And that actually brings up what you were talking in the beginning about, Phil, is like how when everybody is waking up, they all have these different reactions. Yeah. And even Gretchen and the mom at near the very end have this meeting of the eyes where they know each other and they don't know that they know that they know kind of thing. And it's just like, you can see the connection. And then the neighbor boy is like, did you know him? And Gretchen's like, no. And it's like, but she did. And
just speaking of that, like I have questions. I haven't been able to formulate the connection yet. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the way that he says about, my neighbor, he died. The dad, when he's talking about Frankie Fabler, says it in the same tone.
Oh,
Frankie Fabler, he died.
That's true.
I don't know if that's a connection, but it just seems
they are very similar in the delivery. Yeah. Now I'll have to watch it again.
Chapter 12, Dreams. When the manipulated awaken from their journey into the tangent universe, they are often haunted by the experience in their dreams. Many of them will not remember.
That's right away. That's where like Kitty and Jim Cunningham wake up and like they're bursting into tears. It's like they remember like horrible things they did,
And I'd like to ask you guys, I know I'm a very lucid dreamer. Have you ever woken up and felt like you shifted something in another timeline or had that shock experience of like the experience in sleep that you just had?
Yes, quite a few times. Like you, Don, I've stopped myself and other timelines from misbehaving and doing wrong things. I remember actually when I first went sober, like truly sober, not just dabbling anymore, I would actually have these dreams about drugs. And it was interesting. And I remember, like, in the dreams before I started to become lucid, I would like I would become like slightly aware, and I would be like, like, what am I doing? Like, I vowed to stop all this stuff, kind of like how you stopped yourself from drinking in these dreams. And then there was one time where I became lucid in it. And actually how it ended up happening is there was a friend of mine who I just had a falling out with because of drugs, who showed up in the dream, and he was offering me drugs. And I thought it was just so strange because we had just had this falling out between each other. And I remember I took the drugs that he gave me, and I like opened up the bag, and I like dumped them out on the floor in front of him, and I like threw the bag in his face, and I said, no. I said, I'm good with this. And then almost when I did that, it was almost that I felt like there was this collapse within me. And then I woke up, and I felt like I had actually shifted myself out of that old timeline through that experience.
That is awesome. And I was just writing down, and I think this actually comes from what dreams may come, is dreams are the windows into the other stages of our consciousness. And like, I do think that is very relevant, especially with some of the experiences I've been having in the last couple of years. Is like, I used to dream the way people talked about dreaming, like normal people. And in the last couple of years, I've started having sleeping experiences of other stages of my consciousness, and I no longer dream. And because they are just as lucid and as tactile as I am here. And it really is a strange experience when you start to have these things happen to you.
Yeah, one of the early stages of my own awakening was when I was having psychic premonitions in my dreams that were vividly coming true here in the 3D, and I was so scared I didn't know what to do about it. But that was the early wake-up call I needed to keep going. So I mean, it's affected all of us, no doubt.
Oh, absolutely. And I know we're coming up on an hour and a half already because this is an awesome movie. I really do want to thank you guys for sitting down and doing this. And
Yeah.
Phil, I know you had a bunch of stuff, and I don't want to shortchange you on this. So if you have anything, now is your time. You're the superstar. Let her go.
Oh, thank you. There's just a couple of things I'm going to bring up here, and I'm feeling compelled to save this one aspect to another time, but I wrote down a bunch of parallels between this movie and the arc of Stranger Things, but I don't think I'm going to get into that today. Yeah, there's way more parallels than you think, but I'm going to get into that like on another show maybe, or another time, especially after Stranger Things wraps up here. But
one sec.
Yeah.
Fearless Frank Castle wants to break down Stranger Things in my next season.
Oh, does he? Oh, right on.
Yeah. So if you want in on that and want to throw that into there,
yeah,
we'll be doing
for sure.
that next.
We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, we have to actually binge watch Stranger Things just to catch up.
I started binge watching it just after Canadian Thanksgiving, so like I'm mostly a newbie, but I think I was meant to watch it at that time, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, a couple of things I want to bring up is that one of the big other foreshadowings we haven't touched on yet in this movie is when Drew Barrymore is teaching the class, and it's what gets her fired from her job is the Graham Greene book, where the main theme is destruction is creation. And if you think about it, Donnie destroys quite a few things in order to create his timeline, and his timeline is first created when the jet engine destroys his room. So, Steven, you have something to say?
No, I'm just listening, man.
Okay, no, I thought you were like putting your hand up for something.
No, man. I'm just keep going, dude.
So yeah, destruction or creation of destruction is very big, prominent theme in this film. What else do I have here? Also, yeah, there's a couple of strange symbols I picked up on, which we might talk about here for a couple of minutes. Is when you watch this film again, have a couple of good looks in Donnie Darko's bedroom and in the psychiatrist's office, because you're going to see some things you're going to be like, what the hell is that doing there? So Donnie seems to have a portrait. This is before his room gets destroyed by the engine, has like an all-seeing eye portrait above his bed, or like a giant eyeball. And also there's a wooden carving of an owl on his nightstand. And the same fridge where he gets led to by the spear, and at the Halloween party, the note gets left, Frank went to get beer, there's an owl fridge magnet right beside it. And it's like, what is that doing there? You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that was put there by accident. And also in the psychiatrist's office, there's like a white mask on the wall near that big portrait. And it looks like it's one of those masks from like Eyes Wide Shut or something. Like, it looks really unusual and out of place. And I'm sure there's a whole thing you could break down from there. But there's just all sorts of little tidbits to look at. And I bet if I went in the next few days and watched the movie again, I would probably notice it, these things even more. One last thing I want to bring up, though, which is quite interesting, is that I decided to look up the filmography of Richard Kelly, who wrote and directed this film, because after this, he didn't do a whole lot. And it has to make you wonder, did he reveal one truth too many and sabotage his own career? It's highly possible. But I did find out, and I think this may have been the last film he did, and I have never seen it. In 2009, he co-wrote a film called S. Darko, and it's a film about Samantha Darko, Donnie's younger sister. And I think he only worked on another film or two after that and just kind of disappeared from the public eye. And I have not heard a damn thing about this S. Darko film. So that could be an indication that it's not very good, but who knows? Maybe it's chock full of symbolism as well. And Spinja's got a real look on her face. So I want to hear what she has to say about that.
Yeah, the after part we touched on it was Southland Tales.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommended if you haven't seen it, because and there are actually some it's the same idea. Like, Donnie Darko has this star-studded cast that basically got buried. Southland Tales, oh my goodness. Okay, we've got The Rock, we've got
Justin Timberlake,
and then Sean William Scott,
the dad from Donnie Darko,
and Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think, all of these huge, Mandy Moore, and nobody talks about it, and it's because it's the same thing, all of the revelations and stuff, the same kind of
good,
the same level as Donnie Darko. I really think, how did this film get buried?
She actually just gave a huge key point that it's one of those movies like Donnie Darko. When you first watch it, it's like, what the fuck did I just watch? But then when you figure out it's actually a modern day retelling of the Book of Revelations, you're like, oh,
interesting.
Right? It's that kind of movie, and it's like, holy fuck, what did I just watch again? Right? And then you have to watch it again because you're like, okay, then I missed this the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is another one of those deep ones that I'm probably going to do a show on later. But
nice. Last couple of things I just want to say here, and then this will kind of go into closing comments, I think, is there's two major themes that I think this story is all about. One is clearing your karma and trying to escape the wheel of karma in a way. Mm-hmm. And another one, which kind of correlates, is sacrifice. Sacrifice is such a huge theme in this movie because Donnie had to sacrifice himself to have the embetterment of others who are suffering in this story. And even though when Donnie manipulates the timeline and escapes the jet engine through the assistance of Frank from the future, and he ends up getting Jim Cunningham busted, there's still a lot of people suffering in his life. And it's a really tough decision he has to make. And you might argue that when his world kind of falls apart, he knows he has to go back and sacrifice himself to make things right.
Absolutely. And we broke that down even further, because with Donnie's death, then the little sister would never be in the dance competition and in that whole limelight around people like Jim Cunningham. So in a longer way, he even saves Samantha Darko from a terrible, terrible life, because a lot of us know what happened to those dance kids when that shit, and there's a pedophile right at the doorstep. Like,
Yeah.
so Donnie makes the right decision, even though it costs him his life. I totally agree.
And we have to, like I said, with less extremes, you know, we still have to make those balances and figure out our relationship in the own light and dark and yin and the yang. So like it's a big metaphor of life itself, really, if you break it down.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, guys, I guess we're going to wrap it up there for tonight. I want to appreciate you guys for spending 90 minutes with me again. Stephen, do you want to tell everybody where to get a hold of you and check out your material, and then we'll go into you, Phil?
Absolutely, again. So you can find me on the Forbidden Knowledge Network with Mr. Don Rogers here at www.forbiddenknowledge.news, and you can find me on all major podcast platforms as well, Rockfin, Spreaker, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube and Rumble under BG Cast. And Don, thanks for having me on tonight.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for coming.
All right, Don, thank you again for having me once again. Like I said, this was epic. So I host Unexplained Incorporated, where the unknown connects with the empowered. It's half unexplained, half spirituality, and sometimes colliding. Got a lot of really exciting things coming up. So Boxing Day, I have an episode dropping, a solo one, and there's a lot of parallel synchronicities that coincide with ones that like Donnie Darko finds in his own story. But like I've said to Don, at least without the extremes. So if you dig some of that, you're going to like what I have coming up then. I've got a pretty significant announcement coming in January, TBA, and it has to do with some decoding. More on that in the new year, you're going to hear about. And for those of you that have followed my social media, I posted a countdown the other day. That is a countdown to my 6-year anniversary show at the end of March, but there is something major coming along with it. And I can't get into that as well. So if you want to check me out, all the audio episodes are available on unexplainedinc.com. I'm on all major audio platforms, and for video right now, just Rumble, but looking to expand. And I look forward to hearing from you if you're hopping on brand new. And everyone on this panel has been on my show more than once. So, or actually, Steven's only been on once, but you'll be on a second time for sure. So
thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as I go, I want to thank you for me and my lovely interdimensional exit buddy. And that is the end of season 2, guys. I want to thank everybody that watched over the last year and enjoyed the content and shared it and liked it. And we're now over 500 subscribers from 2 years ago. So thank you, guys. I love you guys. And I got to do this before I go. Just 1 second. This shit. My Christmas shit actually lights up.
yeah.
So I just want to say happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas, whatever you want to do. Enjoy your friends, enjoy your family. And I love you guys. And if you can, please go outside, because it's a lot better than sitting in front of this screen.